Do you believe that eyes are the only way to sense danger? In the heart of Central Park, Emily Carter sits on her usual wooden bench, letting the cool breeze brush against her face. Beside her, Max, her little German Shepherd, stands ever alert, ears perked, ready to reek to any threat. And then the danger arrives. The sound of heavy boots hitting the pavement, a low, mocking voice, a stranger approaching, carrying an unknown intent. Emily can't see him, but she can feel it. Something is very, very wrong. And Max, her only protector, is prepared to fight, a helpless blind girl, or a resilient soul ready to strike back. Just a dog, or a fearless warrior who won't back down. This isn't just a story, it's a battle between darkness and light, predator and prey, fear and courage. What happens next? Will Emily escape this threat? How far will Max go to protect her? Don't miss a second of this heart-pounding moment. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is just getting started. Central Park had always been Emily Carter's sanctuary. She sat on the same worn wooden bench beneath the towering oak trees, letting the cool breeze brush against her face as she listened to the symphony of birdsong and the distant laughter of children. In her grasp was a sturdy leather leash, securely holding Max, her loyal German Shepherd. Max wasn't just a companion. He was her eyes, her protector, and her anchor ever since the accident that had stolen her sight 5 years ago. Despite the tranquility of her surroundings, Max remained on high alert. His ears twitched at every subtle sound, his sharp eyes scanning the park, as if anticipating something out of place. Across the park, Jason de Jacques Reynolds leaned against his motorcycle, surrounded by a small group of leather-clad men. With his broad frame, shaved head, and arms covered in tattoos, Jax had a presence that was impossible to ignore. His gaze settled on Emily and her poised, ever-watchful dog. There was something about her serenity, paired with the dog's unwavering vigilance, that irritated him. He flicked his cigarette onto the pavement and smirked. Look at that, a little princess with her perfect guard dog. Jax pushed off his bike, his heavy boots thudding against the sidewalk as he strode toward her. Behind him, his friends chuckled at his antics. His approaching footsteps cut through the peaceful atmosphere, drawing Max's immediate attention. The dog stiffened, ears pricking up, body coiled and ready. A low, guttural growl rumbled in his chest. Emily felt the tension through the leash and tilted her head slightly toward the sound of approaching footsteps. Hey there, sweetheart, Jack sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Keenest dog you got there. Does he do any tricks? Jump through hoops? Roll over for us? Emily tightened her grip on the leash, her heart pounding. She couldn't see him, but the threat in his tone was unmistakable. Stay away from me, she said firmly, masking the fear rising in her chest. But Jax didn't back off. Instead, he clapped his hands loudly, deliberately trying to provoke Max. The dog held his ground, his intense gaze locked onto Jax, the growl in his throat deepening. Bro, playing tough, huh? Had Jax sneered, stepping closer. At that moment, a few passers-by had stopped, curiously observing the unfolding situation. But no one dared to intervene. Seeing the attention, Jax only grew more amused. He lifted his foot, pretending as if he were about to kick Max. Max's growl dropped into a deep, menacing rumble. Low and sharp, a warning laced with danger. Emily gasped, her voice rising with alarm. Don't do that. But Jax had no idea who he was dealing with. Before becoming Emily's guide dog, Max had served as a military working dog, trained for high-risk missions, capable of taking down threats far more dangerous than this man. As Jax's foot inched closer, Max's instincts kicked in. His body coiled tight, muscles tensed, eyes locked onto the imminent threat. The air in the park grew thick with tension. Bystanders held their breath, frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. Jax let out a loud, mocking laugh, the sound echoing through the park. He lifted his foot higher, relishing the attention he was drawing. Come on, tough guy, he sneered. Show me what you've got. Emily's grip on the leash tightened, her knuckles turning white. She couldn't see what was happening, but she could feel the weight of the moment pressing in around her. Max didn't move. He stood firm, coiled like a spring, ready to explode at any moment. His growl deepened into something darker, more primal, a final warning that Jax was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. The crowd wavered, unsure whether to step in. Some had already pulled out their phones to record, while others whispered nervously. Someone should stop him, and a woman murmured, but no one dared to intervene. Go away. Emily's voice cracked with desperation. Just leave us alone. He is not just a dog, he will defend himself. Her warning only seemed to fuel Jax's arrogance. To defend himself, he scoffed. He has just a well-trained mutt. Watch this. With a cocky smirk, Jax lunged, swinging his foot toward Max. But before his foot could connect, the German Shepherd moved with lightning speed, leaving everyone stunned. Max dodged effortlessly, then let out a sharp, commanding bark that rang through the park. In a single fluid motion, he stepped in front of Emily, baring his teeth, his fiery gaze locked onto the man before him. This wasn't the reaction of an ordinary dog. This was the response of a warrior, a trained protector prepared to neutralize a threat. Jax instinctively took a step back, caught off guard by Max's sheer presence. For a brief moment, the entire park seemed to hold its breath. Emily gripped the leash tighter, feeling the tension in Max's body and the heavy weight of the moment pressing around her. She knew everything had just shifted. He maxed. She wit, her voice trembling. But Max didn't turn to her. His sharp gaze remained locked on Jax, unwavering, waiting for the next move. Jax wasn't smirking anymore. The arrogance that had painted his face only seconds ago had vanished, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. What the hell is wrong with this dog? He muttered, his voice no longer mocking but hesitant. The crowd continued murmuring, smartphones raised, capturing every tense second, and then, finally, a park ranger in uniform stepped forward. What's going on here? His authoritative voice cut through the tension. Jax froze. The bravado he had flaunted so easily only moments before was now gone as he realized he had drawn far more attention than he wanted. Max remained still, his body like stone, ready to react to Jax so much as twitched in the wrong direction. Emily exhaled sharply, her body trembling from the adrenaline. The tension in Max's leash loosened just slightly. But she knew this wasn't over yet. Jax took a small step back, raising his hands slightly in mock surrender. Relax, man. I was just messing around. This dog is overreacting. He muttered, but his voice lacked the confidence it once carried. The park ranger, now standing firmly between Jax and Emily, crossed his arms over his chest, his expression stern. You think threatening a guide dog is a joke? Not only is it reckless, it's illegal. Emily still held onto Max's leash, her body shaking. But Max remained steady in front of her, his sharp eyes never leaving Jax. The tension in the air was palpable, and the hushed whispers from the crowd only thickened the weight of the moment. The park ranger continued, his voice low but commanding. This dog is doing exactly what he was trained to do, protect her. And from what I can see, he's doing a far better job at it than you are at pretending to be a decent person. Jax's smirk vanished completely as those words hit him. Meanwhile, Max remained tense, a steady growl vibrating from his chest, his body coiled and ready to react. Emily reached down, her fingers brushing over Max's head as she whispered, "A good boy." Max, her voice was shaky, but filled with gratitude. The crowd continued to watch in silence, some still recording the scene, while others whispered among themselves. Then, unexpectedly, an older man stepped forward. The worn military cap on his head caught the sunlight as he moved. His voice cut through the hushed murmurs. This isn't just any dog. But his tone was calm yet certain, his weathered face carrying the weight of experience. He lifted a hand and pointed at Max. He had recognized that stance anywhere. That's a K9. A collective murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Even Jack's eyes flickered with hesitation. Emily furrowed her brows, turning toward the man. But what do you mean? Max is my guide dog, as she tightened her grip on the leash, her voice quiet but edged with uncertainty. The older man stepped closer, nodding slowly. Feast your guide dog now. Sure, but I'd bet good money that before that, he served in the military. That focus, that bark, those are instincts that only trained military dogs have. The words hit Emily like a wave. She knelt beside Max, her fingers running through his thick fur, as if seeing him in an entirely new light. He Maxbird, her voice trembling with disbelief. She had always known Max was special, but she had never imagined the weight of his past. The older man continued, his voice steady yet filled with deep respect. The dogs like him are heroes. They're trained for the battlefield, to protect soldiers and neutralize threats. If he's reacting this way now, it's 'cause he sees that man as a real danger. He cast a sharp glance toward Jax. Jax shifted uncomfortably, his confidence now nothing more than an empty shell. His arrogance crumbled completely. He took another step back, his shoulders slumping. I didn't notice. Ema's voice barely audible. The park ranger stepped closer, his tone firm and unforgiving. Not knowing is no excuse for your actions. You should consider yourself lucky this dog held back. Her Max finally relaxed just slightly, but his eyes remained locked on Jack's. A silent warning not to try anything else. Emily exhaled shakily, her heart still pounding as she struggled to process everything that had just happened. The crowd around them was no longer just a group of curious onlookers. They now watched Max with awe and admiration. To them, he was no longer just a guide dog. He was a warrior. The park ranger turned to Jax, his expression a mix of authority and disdain. You should leave. His voice was final, his gesture dismissive. Jax hesitated, his eyes darting between Max and the older man who had just exposed the dog's past. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, and then someone called out. He called the cops. Jax clenched his jaw, cursing under his breath. He was no longer the one in control of this situation. The strong, dominant image he had tried to maintain was unraveling under the weight of the crowd's judgmental stares. Max, though slightly more at ease, still stood tall, his gaze locked on Jax, unwavering, like a loyal sentry ready to act at a moment's notice. Emily felt as if the world around her was spinning. Max, a military dog. The older man's words echoed in her mind. A battlefield, soldiers' threats. She dropped to her knees beside Max, her trembling fingers running through his thick fur. Max, she whispered, as if trying to connect with a part of him she had never known before. Max tilted his head slightly toward her, his gaze softening for a brief moment then. Just as quickly, he turned back to Jax, his body tense, ever watchful. His unwavering loyalty made Emily's heart tighten. The companion she had trusted for so many years. Who was he really? The older man stepped forward again, his voice serious yet warm. You should know, dogs like him never forget what they've learned. Their instincts run deep, buried within them, waiting for the moment they are needed. And today, he decided you needed him. Emily swallowed hard, feeling a sting in her eyes. She thought back to every moment Max had been more alert than seemed necessary. Every time he had barked as if warning her of something unseen. She had always believed he was simply her guide, but now she understood Max had always been so much more. Jax, unable to bear the tension any longer, threw up his hands. All right, he muttered, stepping back. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. But the park ranger wasn't interested in excuses. That's not for you to decide, see, he shot back. You've caused enough trouble. The Jax turned on his heel, shoulders slumped, and walked away. The ranger followed closely behind, making sure he didn't come back. The crowd slowly began to disperse, though a few remained, their eyes lingering on Emily and Max, as if they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The older man still hadn't left. He stood there, gazing at Max with quiet respect. Look that needed no words to convey everything it meant. As the final murmurs of the dispersing crowd faded, Emily remained standing there. She sat down on a nearby bench, her hand gently resting on Max's back. "You've always been my protector," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But I never knew just how far you'd go for me." And Max sat close beside her, steady and composed, his eyes continued scanning the surroundings, as if ensuring that the danger had truly passed. But for Emily, the park no longer felt like the peaceful refuge it once had. It was now the place where she had uncovered a truth she never could have imagined. Truth that would forever change the way she saw Max and herself. That night, Emily perched on the edge of her small sofa, her gaze fixed on Max, who lay silently at her feet. The day's events played over in her mind like a storm. Jax's aggression, the ranger's intervention, and most of all, Max's past. She reached for her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keyboard for a moment, hesitating. What exactly was she looking for? Where should she even start? Finally, she typed, "A history of military canine dogs." Articles and stories of battle-trained dogs filled the screen, and with every line she read, she understood Max a little more. These dogs weren't just trained. They were soldiers. They were taught to detect danger, protect their teams, and remain composed in the most intense situations. Every single trait described matched what she had witnessed from Max today, but that only raised more questions. What had Max been through? Who had he served alongside? And why had he ended up with her? The thought of Max risking his life in combat sent a wave of mixed emotions crashing through her: pride, admiration, and a deep ache in her heart. She gently closed the laptop and slid down onto the floor beside him. Running her fingers through his thick fur, she spoke softly, her words laced with emotion. "You've always trusted you, Max. But now I understand why. You're even greater than I ever imagined. You've been through so much, haven't you?" Max's ears twitched at the sound of her voice, and after a brief pause, he leaned his head against her hand. For the first time, Emily felt. Together on multiple missions overseas, Karen's voice remained calm but carried deep significance. Emily held her breath, her fingers tightening around Max's leash. "A bravor," she whispered, testing the name, feeling both its strangeness and familiarity. "Where did he serve?" she asked, her voice tight with emotion. "In many different locations, including high-conflict zones," Sir Karen said, pausing slightly as if choosing her words carefully. "But there was one final mission that changed everything. There was an explosion. Bravo saved Sergeant Carter's life, but he was injured in the process. After recovering, he was no longer fit for military service, and that tease when he was re-signed as a guide dog." Emily felt her world tilt. Max Novo wasn't just a smart, resilient dog, a warrior who had once stood on the front lines, protecting his comrades. And now, he was protecting her. She looked down at Max Bravo, who sat silently at her feet, his loyal eyes watching her as if waiting for a command, for some form of recognition. Emily dropped to her knees, wrapping her arms around him, feeling his warm breath and steady heartbeat. "You are not just my guide dog, Max," she whispered. "You're my hero." Max Bravo wagged his tail gently, not needing words to acknowledge what he had always known in his heart. Because to him, Emily was more than just his handler. She was his teammate, his family, and from that moment on, Emily no longer saw Max as just a companion. She saw him as a soldier who had chosen to stay and protect her, his own way. "Ton seeing him again." Ajaka's voice was thick with emotion. Emily swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. "I would love for you to meet Max Bravo," she said softly, smiling slightly as she said the name, still adjusting to it herself. Beside her, Max looked up, as if he understood the weight of this conversation. "Can I come see him?" Jake asked, his voice deep but laced with hope. You of course very Emily answered immediately. We'd love to have you. After finalizing the details and setting a location, Emily ended the call. She set the phone down, her hands still slightly unsteady. She turned to Max Bravo and thought about everything this dog had been through. Running her fingers through his thick fur, she whispered, We're about to uncover a part of your past, Max. Are you ready? Max didn't answer with words, but his gentle tail wag and the unwavering trust in his eyes said it all. Emily took a deep breath. She had no idea what awaited them in this meeting, but one thing was certain. Max wasn't just her guide dog. He was a soldier, a friend, and an irreplaceable part of her life. You remember, don't you? Jake whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Max bravely pressed slowly his head into Jake's palm, his tail wagging steadily, as if anchoring the moment in place. In that instant, all the years apart, all the faded memories, seemed to reconnect. Emily stood there, her heart swelling as she witnessed a reunion unlike any other. Jake knelt down, his hands trembling slightly as they stroked Max's fur, as if needing to confirm that this was truly the same dog who had once stood by his side through battle after battle. So I never thought I'd see you again. Bravo. Max let out a soft whine before lifting his paw and placing it in Jake's hand. Gesture so familiar, so instinctive. It made time feel like it had never passed. Jake chuckled, but tears silently streaked down his face. You're still you. Still that same unbreakable warrior. A warmth spread through Emily's chest. For the first time since learning the truth about Max, she no longer felt uncertainty. She knelt beside him, resting a gentle hand on his back. I always thought I was the one who needed Max. But now I see. Maybe Max needed me too, just like he once needed you. Jake met Emily's gaze, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. Has always needed someone to protect. And he chose you. In that moment, Emily knew. This wasn't just a reunion. It was the beginning of a new chapter for all three of them. Max wasn't just a guide dog. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a hero, a friend, and the bridge between two people who had once been strangers, but now shared a past, a present, and a future, a place where both could sit and reflect on everything that had happened. Emily chose a bench beneath the shade of a tree, where sunlight filtered softly through the leaves. Max Brevo sat close beside her, his eyes still alert as always, but there was something different now. A quiet ease in his posture. She ran her fingers through his thick fur, her voice barely above a whisper, but brimming with emotion. You've been through so much, Max, but whether you were Bravo back then or Max today, you have always been a hero. Max didn't need words to answer. He simply leaned his head against her hand, a silent acknowledgement that he understood. After meeting Jake, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Max's past, the stories of his courage on the battlefield, his quick thinking under pressure, and his unwavering loyalty in the face of danger filled her with both admiration and sorrow. He had endured more than any human could possibly imagine. Every time she touched his fur or felt him guiding her through the streets, she wondered, was his loyalty shaped by the wounds of his past? Emily took a deep breath, tilting her face toward the sky, letting the tranquility of the vast park settle around her. But you don't have to fight anymore, Max, she whispered. You're home now. Max lifted his head, his ears twitching at the sound of her voice, then gently wagged his tail. Yes, after everything, he had finally found where he belonged. That evening, as Max lay quietly at her feet on the sofa, his breathing steady and calm, Jake's words echoed in her mind. They don't live in the past. They live for their person, and right now, Lee, you are his mission. Emily leaned down, resting a gentle hand on Max. She had once thought of him as her lifeline, the eyes that helped her navigate a world she couldn't see, but now she understood their bond was never just about dependence. It was about choice. Max had chosen her, just as she had chosen Max. They were not just handler and guide dog, they were a team, partners. Two souls that had found each other despite coming from completely different worlds. Emily smiled softly and whispered, "You don't need a battlefield to have a purpose, Max. You already have one right here, right beside me." Max lifted his head slightly, then closed his eyes, trusting her completely. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt her heart grow lighter. She no longer worried about Max's past, because he didn't belong anywhere else, except with her. Max visited the training center for retired military dogs. As they stepped onto the vast grounds, a strange feeling crept into Emily's chest. She wasn't sure how Max would react. He had adapted so well to life with her, but was there still a part of him that longed for duty? A trainer greeted them with a warm smile. "This boy looks strong and sharp," she said, kneeling down to observe Max closely. Emily tightened her grip on the leash, studying Max carefully. "I just want to make sure he has the most fulfilling life possible," she explained. The trainer nodded. "You're doing the right thing. Dogs like Max need a purpose. Not necessarily to fight, but simply something to do. Something to focus on." Emily exhaled, feeling a sense of relief. "So, how do we begin?" The trainer led Max to a spacious training area designed for search and rescue drills, quick response exercises, and scent tracking. The moment Max received his first command, his entire body tensed, his eyes lighting up with a level of focus Emily had never seen before. He launched into the training exercises with the energy and precision of a soldier. Watching him move, his instincts kicking in effortlessly, Emily felt a wave of pride and emotion swell inside her. "He hasn't forgotten," she murmured. After the evaluation, the trainer smiled. "T-Max did great. You can bring him here regularly for these training sessions. It'll help him maintain a balanced life." On the way home, Emily glanced down at Max, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I want you to know that I will always do whatever it takes to make you happy, Max," she whispered. Max simply wagged his tail, as if he had always known that. And from that day on, they were no longer just handler and guide dog. They were partners living each day together, making every moment count. Emily felt a deep sense of pride and emotion. Max was no longer just a guide dog. He was still Bravo, a warrior whose instincts and skills had never faded. Every Saturday, they returned to the training center. Max quickly adapted to his new routine, throwing himself into each session with an enthusiasm Emily had never seen before. He moved with purpose, responded sharply to every command, and his eyes shone with determination each time he completed a task. Emily sat on a bench nearby, feeling an unfamiliar yet peaceful sense of clarity. She realized she wasn't just helping Max reconnect with a part of himself. Max was helping her understand more about herself too. One evening after training, as they returned home, Emily knelt beside Max, running her fingers through his thick fur. "You were incredible, Max," she murmured, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I never wanted you to lose any part of who you are. Whether you're Max or Bravo, you will always be you. And whatever you need, we'll figure it out together." Max tilted his head slightly before leaning into her, a silent promise that needed no words. Emily smiled, feeling a newfound certainty settle within her heart. Max wasn't just her companion, he was family. And their story wasn't ending, was only just beginning. They returned to the park, the place where it all started. Where Jax had tried to intimidate them. Where Emily had first realized that Max was far more than just a guide dog. She sat down gently, and Max settled obediently at her feet. His eyes still watchful but far more at ease than the last time they were here. Emily reached down, running her fingers through Maxie's thick fur, her voice warm and steady. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Max looked up, his ears twitching slightly at the sound of her voice. Jake's words echoed in Emily's mind. He has not forgotten his mission, and right now his greatest mission is you. She had never thought about it that way before. All this time, she had believed Max was the one helping her reclaim her life after the accident, guiding her through a world she could no longer see. But now she understood. Max needed her too. He needed someone to protect, someone to give his unwavering loyalty to. They weren't just owner and pet. They were family. "You've protected so many people," she whispered, her voice catching. "But now, you don't have to fight anymore. You just need to be here, with me." Max wagged his tail gently and rested his head against her leg, as if to tell her he understood. Emily's feeling a deep, profound sense of peace wash over her. They had been through so much together, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew they would face them together. As she sat there, the cool evening breeze swept over her, carrying her thoughts through all the changes in their lives. Since she had learned the truth about Max's past, she leaned down, her voice full of quiet gratitude. "You've been through so much, Max. But no matter where you've been, or what you've done, you chose to stay with me, and I will never take that for granted." As if he understood every word, Max pressed against her leg, grounding her with his presence, giving her the same sense of security he always had. In that moment, Emily made a silent promise to honor his past while building a future where he was both loved and had a purpose. Because to Emily, there was no greater privilege than walking this journey with Max, a warrior, a guide, and above all, a loyal friend who would never leave her side.